offered me a topic which is of practical importance. So I want to what can say brief one thing, that this will be a refreshing of your anatomical knowledge, whatever you are having with respect to eye. So the broad topic is blood supply. I will also try to correlate the anatomical, you can say, knowledge with the clinical implications, and majorly with relation to the different types of nerve blocks of the eye. So my topic is blood supply and nerve innervation to eye in animals with clinical implications. So before starting the topic, I have 4 to 5 slides. Quickly, I will go through that. You can see this is the skull of the, you can say, cattle, and you can see the orbital cavity here. This is the orbital cavity. It is complete orbital cavity. Now, this is of canines.
Sorry for interruption, sir. Sir, slide is not showing, sir. Not moving, sir.
Slide is not visible.
Not moving, sir. Not moving, sir.
Not moving.
Yes, sir.
Slide is not moving. Wait.
Yes, no. No. सर इंटायर स्क्रीन शेयर करिए प्लीज सर, इंटायर स्क्रीन शेयर करिए।
एंटायर स्क्रीन में इसको
हाँ, अब स्क्रीन को मिनिमाइज करके पीपीटी ओपन करिए। हाँ, अब प्रेजेंटेशन मोड पर सर एक बार क्लिक कर दीजिए।
हो गया अभी?
अब नेक्स्ट करिएगा सर। हाँ, अब ओके है सर।
Okay, now you can see that of the lower one is that of horse, and this one is of carnivore. So if you, and this one is of poultry. Now if you see, the basic difference is this posterior boundary is absent in case of carnivores. Now it may be one advantage, and it may be also, you can say, disadvantage also. The advantage is that there is wide range of vision due to absence of this posterior boundary, that is orbital cavity is incomplete. And the disadvantage is it is more prone to injury. Now this is important. Now if I go through the inside of the orbital cavity, I can find 3 different foramen. So these are of surgical importance, for particularly for nerve blocks. Now if I see this, the blue one is called optic foramen, and caudal to it, the black one is called foramen orbitorotundum, and still caudal to it is called the foramen ovale. You can also see the distance between the, or you can say among the 3 different foramina. Now if you see the blue arrow, the optic foramen, it gives passage to one nerve known as optic nerve, now which is formed by the retina of the eye at the back side of the, or you can say at the posterior aspect of the eyeball. Similarly, the black arrow, the foramen orbitorotundum, it gives passage to different cranial nerves such as oculomotor, trochlear, first 2 branches of trigeminal, mainly ophthalmic and maxillary branches of trigeminal, then abducent. Then the red arrow, that is the foramen ovale, it gives passage to the mandibular branch of trigeminal. Now all these nerves, they have connections, or you can say they have innervations in the eye. Now this is another angle. You can see optic foramen, foramen orbitorotundum, and foramen ovale. Now you see this is the location in case of horse. The back slide shows this is the location in case of cattle. You see the distance among the foramen, they are quite far from each other if you compare with this with that of the horse. Similarly, same case is observed like horse. In case of dog, they are much more closer to each other. Now, if I go through the tabular form, the red ones which I have highlighted, I want to show you the amount of needle which you need to use if you want to inject the anesthetic solution, or you want to desensitize the eyeball during any eye surgery. The depth of the optic foramen from the orbital surface is 7 centimeter. The range is, in case of cattle, it is 7 to 8.6 centimeter. Similarly, the depth of optic, you can say foramen orbitorotundum from the orbital surface ranges between 7 to 9.3 centimeter. In case of horse, it is, for optic, it is 7.8 to 9.3, and dog 3.2 to 4.5. And similarly for Foramen orbitorotundum, in case of horse, it ranges between 7.4 to 9.8, and in case of dog, 3.4 to 4.5. So it gives an indication about the length of the needle which will be used for different types of nerve blocks while you are approaching these foramina. Now, if you come to the general anatomy of the eye, it is very known to all that this is present inside the orbital cavity, which I have shown you, and the eyeball is there. It consists of three different layers. Outer, you can say, sclera along with transparent cornea. Then middle one is called uvea. The uvea again consisting of the iris, ciliary body, and you can say then choroid, and then the inner one is the nervous layer retina, which actually forms the optic nerve. Then they are protected by, you can say, upper eyelid, lower eyelid, and the outermost covering of the sclera and you can say cornea, that is the conjunctiva. Then if you see there, it is the movement of the eyeball is controlled by 7 different extrinsic muscles, or you can say extraocular muscles. Now this is important because the muscles are you can say dorsal oblique, dorsal rectus, retractor bulbi, medial rectus, ventral rectus, and ventral oblique. 4 you can say rectus, 2 oblique, and 1 retractor bulbi muscle. Now these muscles actually are innervated by whatever cranial nerves which I have shown you. They are exiting out of the cranial cavity through the 3 number of foramina in the previous slides, which are quite useful for desensitization of the eyeball. Now this is some of the, you can say, anatomical part. These are the ciliary processes. Then this is the eye, you can say, of fowl. This is the lacrimal gland with lacrimal apparatus. The connection between the lacrimal gland and the nasal chamber through the nasolacrimal duct. This is the origin of the eye. Basically, there are 3 germ layers: ectoderm, then mesoderm, and endoderm. The eye actually develops from the contribution from ectoderm and mesoderm. There is no contribution of the endoderm. Now, these are some of the teratological conditions or developmental anomalies. One is anophthalmos, that is completely absence of the eyeball. Then cyclopia, that is both the eyeballs are fused to form a single one, called one eye condition. These are some of the histological features of the conjunctiva. Then cornea, then ciliary body. Then you can see the TC layer. This is the choroid layer, TC layer. It is actually the reflecting layer, which is quite developed in the nocturnal animals, which gives, you can say, glazing eye in the night. This is the photosensitive photoreceptor cells, rods and cones of the retina. This is the crystalline structure of the lens, biconvex lens, which is the one of the refractory medium of the eye. Now this is the different layers of the retina. Now if you see the 9 and 10 layer, the outermost layer, the 9 one is the fiber layer, which consisting of the axon fibers of the different nerves coming out from the retina. Finally, these axonal fibers, nerve fibers, which is coming out of the retina, they are united together to form a single nerve, that is the optic nerve, which passes through the optic foramen of the skull. Now, coming to the blood supply. Now, if you come to the blood supply, 2 to 3 major arteries we have to remember. One is internal maxillary artery, another one external maxillary artery, then superficial temporal artery. The ophthalmic artery, as the name indicates, the ophthalmic artery, it supplies to eye, different parts of the eye. It is a part of internal maxillary artery in case of ruminants, and horse, dog, and pig, this is the direct branch. Now further, the ophthalmic artery, as it involves different parts of the eye, it is further divided into supraorbital, that is the upper border of the eye, central artery of the retina, mostly supplies to the retina, ciliary arteries, as we have shown the ciliary processes and ciliary muscles, which is the part of the middle layer of the eyeball, that is the uvea. Then ethmoidal artery and muscular branches to the extraocular muscles or orbital muscles. Then conjunctiva, third eyelid, periorbita means the area surrounding the orbit. All these structures are actually innervated by the ophthalmic artery, which is a branch of the internal maxillary artery. Another artery known as angular artery of eye. It is present in the angle. Then it is the branch of external maxillary. Then the lacrimal glands are supplied by lacrimal arteries, and another artery, that is the superficial temporal artery, it supplies to the orbital fat and eyelids in ruminants. Now if you see this structure, now the 27 one, you can see the frontal one, 28, this one, this is the malar. So it is present in the angle. So this is called as the angular artery of the eye. 27 is the frontal one. You can see this. 21, you can see this is the superficial temporal. You see one branch of the superficial temporal is coming towards the eye. This one. That was in case of cattle. Now this is in case of horse. You can see this is the 18 one is the angular artery of the eye. This one. This is in case of dog. M1 you can see M. Then 28, this one. These are some of the dissected material. Now coming to the important part, that is the nerve innervation of the eye. Now if you see the nerve innervation of the eye, first one is the optic nerve. It is the sensory nerve. Now as we have seen, the axonal fibers of the retina, actually they unite to form a single nerve, that is the optic nerve. It passes through the optic foramen, which I had shown you in the previous slides. And finally, it is connected to the ventral aspect of the brain and forming the optic chiasma. Then you can say the information is passed on to the cerebral cortex for perceiving the visual image of the object. It is passing through this, or for the optic nerve, the site is the optic foramen. We have to approach the site, the optic foramen, during eye surgery for injecting the anesthetic solution. Now, next one is the oculomotor nerve. As the name indicates, it is a motor nerve. Now, it innervates all the extraocular muscles. There are 4, I have told you, the straight muscles or rectus muscles, 2 oblique muscles, and 1 is the retractor bulbi muscle. Now, the innervates all the extraocular muscles except the dorsal oblique and lateral rectus muscles. They are not innervated by oculomotor nerve, but rest all muscles, they are controlled, or you can say innervated by the oculomotor nerve. Now, important thing is the oculomotor nerve is actually exiting from the skull, or you can say cranial cavity, through foramen orbitorotundum, the second foramen which I've shown you. Next come to the trochlear nerve. It is the smallest and slenderest of the cranial nerves. Now it innervates the dorsal oblique muscle of the eyeball. It also exists through the foramen orbitorotundum. So first one, optic nerve, it exits through the optic foramen. Then oculomotor nerve, it exits through the foramen orbitorotundum. Then trochlear nerve also exits through the foramen orbitorotundum. Next come to the ophthalmic nerve. Now ophthalmic, it is a sub branch of trigeminal. The fifth, or you can say the largest cranial nerve, is the trigeminal. One of its branch is ophthalmic. Again, the ophthalmic nerve is divided into 3 more branches, as the name indicates: lacrimal, going to the lacrimal gland and upper eyelid; frontal nerve, same supraorbital area, or above the, you can say, the upper border of the eyeball. Then nasociliary nerve. Now nasociliary, one of the branch of the nasociliary is infratrochlear. This infratrochlear nerve is very important in case of the small ruminants, sheep and goat, because this nerve is also going towards the horns. The zygomatic nerve, it is a branch of also trigeminal. It also innervates the lower eyelid and lateral canthus of the eye. So overall, this slide indicates the branches of the trigeminal nerve, that is the fifth one. The first one, which I've shown you, the ophthalmic branch, and the last one, which shown you the maxillary branch, they both are coming out of the cranial cavity through foramen orbitorotundum. Then abducent nerve. Abducent nerve, actually it innervates the retractor oculi muscle and lateral rectus muscle. Now this nerve also coming out from the cranial cavity through foramen orbitorotundum. So if I say foramen, you can say optic foramen and foramen orbitorotundum, these two are the important sites for nerve blocks, because majority of the nerve except optic nerve which are innervating the eye are coming out through the foramen orbitorotundum. Then the last one I can say, the auriculopalpebral nerve, which is a branch of facial nerve, it innervates the upper eyelid. Then besides these cranial nerves, the eye, you can say the function of the eye is also controlled by sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. Now if you see the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, they are forming ganglion. Ganglion means group of, you can say, cell bodies. Now the cervical ganglion, which is a part of the sympathetic nervous system, it sends fiber and controls the eyeball sympathetically, whereas the oculomotor nerve and the facial nerve, they are involved in the parasympathetic activity of the eye. Now, how they are controlling the parasympathetic activity? Oculomotor nerve forms one ganglion known as ciliary ganglion, whereas the facial nerve forms lacrimatory ganglion, you can say, and the pterygopalatine ganglion. So both of them are going towards the lacrimal gland. Now if you see the sites before going to the nerve block, you can see this one, D1, it is going, this is the auriculopalpebral nerve. The upper one you can see O, this one, these are the branches of the trigeminal. N, O, these all are the branches of trigeminal, whereas this one, D double prime, which is going here, this is the auriculopalpebral nerve, which is a branch of facial. The lower one which is coming, it is also the branch of the trigeminal. Sorry. Similarly for horse also, then for dog also, you can see the eyeball and different extrinsic muscles of the eye, and these are the innervations. So basically, if I will talk about the cranial nerves such as optic, oculomotor, trochlear, trigeminal, abducens, and if you include auriculopalpebral also of the facial, so 6 different cranial nerves are innervating the eye. Finally, I can conclude 6 different cranial nerves are innervating the eye. This is also, you can see, for dog. This one is also for dog. Now, this is some of the dissections which we performed. This one. So, this also we have performed. You can see this is the small ruminant, that is goat. This green arrow, you can see the auriculopalpebral nerve, which is going and innervating the upper eyelid. Red one is the cornual nerve, which is a branch of trigeminal, directly going to the base of the horn. And the black arrows, which is not found in case of the large ruminant, is the infratrochlear nerves. You can see the next arrow. These 3, you can see the entire base of the horn is innervated by the infratrochlear nerves. This is not the condition in case of the large ruminant. So if you want to do little bit of outside of my topic, if you want to do the cornual nerve block in large ruminant, you have to block only this nerve, cornual nerve, which is known as clot, CLOT, cornual, branch of lacrimal, branch of ophthalmic, branch of trigeminal, CLOT clot. So only you have to block this single nerve. But in case of sheep and goat, if you want to do amputation of the horn, you have to block both this clot and also these branches of the infratrochlear. Both infratrochlear and cornual nerve you have to block in small ruminants. Now, if you want to block the auriculopalpebral nerve for eye surgery, you can see the site. It is actually the midway between the lateral canthus of the eye and base of the ear. If you see, this is the lateral canthus of the eye and base of the ear. The total, you can say this region, it is around the midway. You have to inject the anesthetic solution for diffusion of the blocking the auriculopalpebral nerve, which will actually desensitize the upper eyelid. Now this is the diagram. The yellow ones are the sympathetic nervous system. These are the ganglions. You can see the cervical ganglion. It is going towards the, you can say, the eye, cervical, which we have already discussed. Then these black ones, these are actually the parasympathetic nervous system. Now this parasympathetic nervous system, they are using actually the cranial nerves for their outlet, and already discussed oculomotor and facial. They perform the parasympathetic action on the eye. Now these ones. This is first one is the ciliary ganglion formed by the third cranial nerve oculomotor. Then facial, pterygopalatine ganglion and submandibular ganglion. Both are innervating the, you can say, the lacrimal gland. Now coming to the different nerve blocks of the eye. There are different nerve blocks of the eye. First one is 4-point nerve block. Now, as the name indicates, 4-point means you have to inject the anesthetic solution at 4 different points surrounding all around the eyeball. Now, why? When you are injecting the anesthetic solution at the, you can say, upper border of the eyeball, then you are actually desensitizing the supraorbital or frontal nerve, which is a branch of trigeminal. Now, if you are innervating upper border again, then along with frontal nerve, you are innervating the lacrimal nerve. So both lacrimal nerve and frontal nerve, they are the branches of trigeminal. If you are injecting at the medial canthus of the eye, another point, then that you are innervating the infratrochlear nerve, which is a branch of, again, trigeminal nerve. Then if you are innervating, or you can say injecting the anesthetic solution at the lower border and lateral canthus of the eye, third point, that is the zygomatic nerve, which is also a branch of the trigeminal. So whether you are injecting the solution at the upper border, medial canthus and lower border, basically you are blocking the branches of the trigeminal nerve. And the last one is the medial canthus of the eye, that is the auriculopalpebral nerve. So upper border, lower border, lateral canthus, medial canthus, at 4 different points surrounding the eyeball, you are injecting the anesthetic solution one by one. But I can say the 4-point nerve block for performing minor surgeries of the eyeball, that is that may solve the purpose. But for major surgery of the eyeball, such as enucleation of the eyeball, you have to go for either retrobulbar nerve block or Peterson eye block. Now coming into the retrobulbar nerve block. Now what do you mean by retrobulbar nerve block? Now retro means at the back side, bulbar means eyeball. So you have to inject the anesthetic solution at the back side of the eyeball. Now why we are injecting at the back side of the eyeball? Already I've shown you the figure of skull in the previous slides. Now below the eyeball, there are presence of 3 different foramina: optic foramen, foramen orbitorotundum, and foramen ovale. Our point of concern for eye surgery is optic foramen, and foramen orbitorotundum, and already I have shared what are the nerves that are passing through these optic foramen and foramen orbitorotundum concerning the eyeball. So in order to desensitize those nerves, we have to inject the anesthetic solution at the back side of the eyeball, and that procedure is called retrobulbar nerve block. Now in this nerve block, the optic nerve, oculomotor nerve, trochlear nerve, trigeminal nerve, and adjacent nerves are desensitized because these nerves are traveling through or coursing through the optic foramen and foramen orbitorotundum. Peterson's eye block, it is meant for actually desensitization of the nerves that are passing through the or coming out through the foramen orbitorotundum, such as oculomotor, trochlear, trigeminal, and adjacent nerves. And finally, the auriculopalpebral nerve, which is a part of facial nerve. I have shown you the dissected figure. It is going to the upper eyelid. For the desensitization of the upper eyelid, this nerve block is performed. Now, first come to the retrobulbar nerve block. Now, if you see this figure and this figure, for retrobulbar nerve block, we have to approach the optic foramen and foramen orbitorotundum at the back side of the eyeball. How to go through that? We have to take one curved needle. Straight needle will not solve the purpose because we have to gain entry through this is the medial canthus of the eye, this is the lateral canthus of the eye, this is the upper border of the eye, this is the lower border of the eye. So if you inject the anesthetic solutions at these 4 points, I have told you this is called 4-point nerve block. But once you are going for retrobulbar nerve block to back side of the eyeball, you have to inject the curved needle in the midway, or you can say the halfway between the lateral canthus of the eye and you can say the lower eyelid. This is the lateral canthus of the eye and this is the lower eyelid. Now this is the area where you have to insert the curved needle and you have to go through 3 to 4 centimeter long needle. You have to insert, and so that you can approach the foramen of orbitorotundum and optic foramen at the back side of the eyeball for injecting the anesthetic solution to perform the retrobulbar nerve block. Now what happens for enucleation of the eyeball or complete removal of the eyeball? Sometimes retrobulbar nerve block along with auriculopalpebral nerve block, because in this nerve block the auriculopalpebral nerve cannot be blocked, because I told you for anesthetizing the auriculopalpebral nerve, you have to inject the anesthetic solution. In the next slide, I will show you at the midway between the lateral canthus of the eye and base of the ear. So, along with this retrobulbar nerve block and auriculopalpebral nerve block will solve the purpose for enucleation of the eyeball. Now, this rightmost figure is the Peterson's nerve block. Now, in retrobulbar nerve block, we are approaching the foramen orbitorotundum. In Peterson's nerve block, also we are approaching the foramen orbitorotundum. But the difference is, for retrobulbar nerve block, we have to go to the back side of the eyeball through the area between the lateral canthus and lower eyelid. But for Peterson's nerve block, which I have shown you, this is the posterior boundary of the eyeball. This is the posterior boundary of the eyeball. You have to inject a long needle. What is the depth of the needle? Already in the table, we have shown the depth of the location of the foramen orbitorotundum and optic foramen from the surface of the eyeball or from the orbital surface. In ox, horse, and dog, I have shown you in the previous slides in tabular form marked with red color. That indicates how much length, or you can say long needle, you have to use for you blocking the foramen orbitorotundum through Peterson's nerve block. That is, I can tell this is the zygomatic arch. At the upper border of the site will be upper border of the zygomatic arch, just posterior to the caudal boundary of the orbit, is the point where you can inject the straight long needle the length depending on the table for different species, so that you can approach the foramen orbitorotundum to perform the Peterson's nerve block. Now, just like that of the retrobulbar nerve block, in this Peterson nerve block also, the auriculopalpebral nerve isn't blocked or isn't desensitized. So combining auriculopalpebral nerve block and Peterson's nerve block will solve the purpose for enucleation of the eyeball. Now, you see, there are two needles which have been injected with anesthetic solution. You can see the points. This one, where I am pointing my cursor here, I've already told you this is the halfway site between the lateral canthus of the eye and base of the ear. Almost halfway site is the point where the auriculopalpebral nerve is passing. In the dissected figure I've shown you, this is the site for injecting the anesthetic solution for blocking the auriculopalpebral nerve, which is a branch of the facial nerve going to the upper eyelid. And this one is the point which is present above the eyeball. That is the point where you can block the supraorbital branch or the frontal nerve, which is a branch of the trigeminal. It is also coming and innervating the, you can say, the upper eyelid. Same thing, both of them are same for auriculopalpebral nerve. You can see this is in case of ruminants and that was in case of horse. In ruminants also the same thing, the halfway between the lateral canthus of the eye and base of the ear. So these are some of the nerve blocks which can be correlated with the different branches of the cranial nerves innervating the eye, and the 4-point, whether it is 4-point nerve block or Peterson's nerve block, or you can say retrobulbar nerve block, auriculopalpebral nerve block, all these nerve blocks are very much important. You can say for performing these nerve blocks, the courses of the different cranial nerves which have been mentioned, along with their exiting site, such as foramen orbitorotundum and optic foramen, their location from the orbital surface for knowing the, or for estimating the, or getting the idea about the length of the needle which will be used in case of the adult animals in different species, ox, horse and dog, are important or vital for performing different eye surgery in domestic animals with species difference. Thank you very much. So I hope this anatomical knowledge along with a little bit of surgical application will refresh your memory, and will definitely, you will get some of the indicator of the different procedures of the nerve blocks performed in eye. Thank you very much. If you have any query, you can ask me. Am I audible?
हाँ sir, you are audible sir.
Okay, if you have any query, you can ask me. Otherwise, we can stop our. I will stop sharing the screen.
Okay sir. Session is over, na? Okay.
Okay.
Participants, if you have any query, you can ask now. Participants, if you have any query, you can ask now.
Thank you, ma'am.
Anyone is there?